It is exactly a quarter of a century, that is 25 years, since the Somali war began, and in all of these years, the residents of the capital, Mogadishu, as in many parts of the country, would watch the sun set with increasing fears that the militant group Al-Shabaab will launch deadly attacks. There is an in the strife-torn horn of African nation at the moment, an AU force or mission patrolling the city to ensure that Somalis go about their business, especially at night in peace. GBC 24's award-winning journalist Abdul Hayi Moomen has returned from Mogadishu after a 4-day trip during which he joined the AMISOM forces on one of their night patrols, and he has this revealing story about war and its devastating effect on society.
Night has fallen in Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia, and fear suddenly grips residents. A few months ago, the extremist group Al-Shabaab lost stranglehold on Somalia's nerve center to the Somali National Security Forces, bolstered by troops from the African Union Mission to Somalia, AMISOM.
We are just about leaving on the night patrol with the AU forces here in Somalia.
I don't know. Maybe if you're... Before we leave, I have to give you some security advice. Our escort, our patrolmen that will be with you will give you escort. That will give you covering fire while you do your work, do your interview. You are advised to heed to any advice given to you by any of our policemen, because we know the terrain.
These men from the Special AMISOM Police Unit are here to augment the efforts of Somalia's police force as they work to return law and order to the country's biggest city after more than 2 decades of civil war in which thousands have died, millions displaced, and countless number injured.
Make some noise, make some noise.
Residents say any inconvenience experienced during the frequent SPF security checks are inconsequential given the dramatic improvement in recent months.
The security we feel now better at the night, so I see no problem.
Despite Al-Shabaab's retreat from Mogadishu 4 years ago, the Al-Qaeda-affiliated group still carries out sporadic attacks in the capital. With training and backup provided by 140 Ugandan and Nigerian AMISOM police officers, the SPF say they can patrol Mogadishu's battle-scared streets with increasing confidence.
Yeah, it is like a weekly base. Every week we foil attacks that were supposed to damage the civilians, because election is coming, because Ramadan is coming. They are more dangerous than before because they don't respect the religion, they don't respect the culture, so that we protect with the help of our brothers of AMISOM.
On this night, the joint patrol happens upon a moonlight game of football being played on an empty side street, a clear sign that things have changed in Mogadishu. However, no one can tell what will happen the next minute.
We will give them a buffer, we'll form a buffer for them. They will go to the black spots, search the place. If they see anybody, they will arrest. At each junction that is a hot place, they will stop, conduct a search. After that, we'll continue our patrol.
The SPF still has a lot of road to cover before it can operate independently. AMISOM is committed to helping them get there by providing training and operational support, but even more assistance is needed urgently in terms of weapons, equipment and vehicles. Perhaps the journey to lasting peace and stability in Somalia, a country that has been devastated by war for close to 3 decades, has just begun. Abdul Hayi Moomen, GBC 24, Mogadishu, Somalia.
Well, we now have in the studio Abdul Hayi Moomen to tell us more about the situation in Mogadishu and his experience in that war-torn country. Good evening, Abdul.
Good evening.
Well, Abdul, you've been to Mogadishu, right? Can you tell us, does the place reflect the news or information that we receive from the Western media?
I'll say both yes and no. Yes, to the extent that when you go to Somalia today, people live in their own country as if they were prisoners. And no, to the extent that most of the pictures you see show pictures of people who are lean, who are famished and unfed, and they have bones coming out of their ribs and all that. Those pictures really do not represent what is on the ground. But really, on the ground, you find that there's a lot of insecurity around. People are living and they know that the next minute they could be dead. I spoke to the president of the Somalian Journalists Association, a story we'll be showing later on, and he says, look, at any point in time, you can die in Somalia. And even when you are with the AU forces or UN representatives, the people that most of the time I was with and I went out with them, they made me sign an indemnity form so that should I step out and anything happened, they would not be held liable for the loss of my life if it were so to happen. And so, to that extent, there's a lot of insecurity in Somalia.
So once there is insecurity in that country, then that means there's no calm.
There's no calm. There's when you talk about calm, it's also it depends
relative.
on yes, relative. Which angle you're looking at it from? If you look at Somalia of 1991, Somalia of 94, and Somalia of 2006, then you would say that there is calm. But if you want to compare Somalia to a place like Ghana, to a place like the West African sub-region, then you would say that there's a lot of turmoil in Somalia because every step you take, somebody's watching you. Every move you make, to the extent that I stood on top of one of the hotels that was attacked by Shabaab not too long ago. It's called the Jazeera Hotel in Somalia. I was on top of that hotel and trying to take a picture because it's not very far from the airport. An aeroplane was taking off, and the military guard who was with me immediately shoved me off and said, look, you could be the target of a sniper. Mm-hmm. And so it's that dangerous to be out there. Yes, but again, those who have been in Somalia all this while will tell you, look, things are getting better. And on the AU day, the Somalian president himself said things are so much better that he's now appealing to Somalis who have left the country on exile in other countries to start returning.
And in the video, we had a lot of firing of shots. So how did it feel being so close to that range? How did you feel?
If you remember, again, last year, even in Ghana, when we had the fire disaster and the floods, we're out there doing our work. It's what we have.
This is flood, this is disaster, this is Ghana, but this is Somalia, a country you are saying
my job as a journalist is to bring the news. You asked me the very first question. Do what we see in the Western media reflect what I saw?
Exactly.
So who will tell our story for us?
Yeah.
I chose to tell the story.
So I'm asking, how did it feel?
At a point, I was very afraid. In fact, the whole of that night, I didn't sleep a wink because I didn't know what was going to happen next.
Ghana, that moment.
In some of the other videos we will show later, I spoke to a colonel from Ghana, Colonel Yakubu, and Colonel Opon, who are both serving in Somalia. They are military men themselves, but they confess that, look, when one of those missiles was thrown and it came very close to where they lived, they were very scared. And one of them says, look, I look forward to the day they will say my service has ended and go
coming right
home.
back to Ghana.
Yeah. Well, it's that dangerous.
Abdul, from what we've seen, do you think that the country can reconstruct in the next 10 years?
In the next 10 years, I think that would be too ambitious. To the extent that because we don't have much time, this is how Al-Shabaab is operating there. They go into the areas, make sure that the people have at least water, provision of water. As soon as the AMISOM forces are able to defeat Al-Shabaab, what they do is to destroy the Al-Shabaab forces. They destroy all the water bodies to the extent that the people have difficulty in accessing water. And then they go back to the people and say, you are safer under us, because under us, you have access to water, you have access to electricity.
It's a
Under the
necessity.
government, you do not have access to these things. And so the people sometimes, not because they want to be associated
So
or
they are
affiliated,
torn between the devil and the deep Red Sea.
Exactly so. And so, and you don't find many NGOs going into Somalia because, again, of the security situation there. If you're found to be a stranger in Somalia, you're at risk. It's a fact. You cannot just walk into Mogadishu township as a Ghanaian and feel free. It doesn't happen. All the foreigners who are working in Somalia today are working within the confines of areas controlled strictly by the AU forces and by the UN.
So, given this video clip, this disturbing video clip that we've watched, you'll be bringing more, and those pictures I know will be more frightening than this one. It's getting to elections in Ghana. Is war something that one must wish for him or herself?
On the day I landed in Ghana from this trip, there was this debate about the IGP and saying that he might want to
shut down
social media, and I said I agreed with him to some extent, because what I saw out there in Somalia for more than 25 years today, people have not had the right to freely express themselves. Anyone expressing himself has to look back behind their shoulders to see who is watching. And I can tell you that in 2014, 36 journalists were killed in Somalia for expressing themselves. 2015, 16 journalists were killed. And these are journalists who are being killed. And I'm saying that I would prefer to be gagged for one day so that I can have freedom for the rest of my life than to have freedom for one day on an election day and to cause a problem that can lead me to
others to also suffer,
and to be gagged for 25 years or for however long. That's